Welcome to Digital Literacy, a guide to using technology and journalism. It's time for your last lesson on video. This is the fourth week that we've spent on video, and if all goes according to plan, this is the last of these video tutorials that you'll have to watch. Hopefully these have been helpful for you. So let's get right into what we're going to be doing today. Our goals for today are to apply graphics. Now there's two types of graphics that we're going to do here. We're going to do something called a lower third graphic. That's the graphic that most of you are familiar with. We'll explain that when we bring it up. And then we're going to talk about exporting for whatever your target audience is. Everything we've done so far has been exporting full high resolution, high definition video files. Now, depending upon the length of your pieces, those can get pretty big. They're a little too big usually to upload into something like YouTube or Vimeo or blip.tv. So we're going to show you a quick way of knocking those down with another program. All right, so here we are again in Final Cut Pro. As promised, I have gone ahead and I have finished putting in all of the rest of the B-roll that we were going to use in this. So here's what you saw. I just added a couple more things here towards the end. You'll see that I put those transitions at the beginning and the end there. I also put a set of transitions at the beginning of the interview with Mr. Bentley and the end of the interview with Mr. Bentley. And if you look carefully down here, I can actually blow this up a little bit so it's a little easier to see. There are transitions on the audio so that he fades in and fades out at the end of his talks there. Again, those little gray squiggle things there, those are telling you that those are transitions. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to put something called the lower third graphic on. And a lower third graphic is going to be someplace where you can put a name and titles. They're the things that you see along the bottom of television broadcasts all the times. And built into Final Cut Pro is something called a video generator. So we're going to come over to the Effects tab up here. And I've already selected the video generator file here and come down to text, and you'll see one called lower third. So I'm just going to double click on that. And here in my viewer now, you'll see it says sample text 1 and sample text 2. Now you can't edit the text here. What you do is come up to the tab for controls, and this will give you a whole bunch of information here. So text 1, we're going to put Mr. Bentley's name in here. So Cecil Bentley is going to be in there. And you can change the typeface that you want to use. We'll keep things simple, and we're just going to leave it in Lucida Grand. The style, let's just make that bold. The size is set for 36 points. We're going to leave that alone. For the second line of text, we're going to change this just to Grady College. If I can spell. We'll leave it in the same typeface. We're going to leave it as plain, but I'm going to bump the point size down a little bit. So I'm going to bring that from 36 down to, say, 24. Right? And I can click back over here on video, and you can see, oops, why didn't somebody tell me that I had a typo in there? Just go back in, take that out. Cecil Bentley, Grady College. All right. Now the other things that we have down here, if we scroll down a little bit, is we have some options for the background. Now right now that's just going to sit and float on top of our text. We can put a bar between the two of them, or we can make the background a solid. Usually this is a good idea just because you don't know what's going to be back there. You can change the color of that solid here. Usually what I'm going to do is just leave this as black, but I'm going to change the opacity of it down to 70%. All right, just plug the slider there, or I can grab 70 and change it there. And you can't see it here, but you will in a moment, that there's going to be a gray bar that this sits on top of. All right, so I've got that set to go. Now I just need to do this as we would every other edit. What I want to do is start this at the very beginning. So I'm going to go to the very beginning of my video. Make sure I'm clicked over here. I'm going to put an in point. And using the down arrow, I can go to my next edit. And I'm going to use that as my out point. All right, so I've got an in and an out there. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to click and drag, but instead of doing an overwrite like we've been doing before, I'm going to do superimpose. And what this is going to do is it's going to add yet another video channel. So now I have a video channel 3 that's sitting on top here. And you can see, if I click back in here, there it is, Cecil Bentley, Grady College. And you can see that it's a black solid that it's sitting on with some opacity, so you can see through it. Now there are some options in Final Cut to be able to take this and move it around. For this week, we're not going to worry about it. But one thing to think about when you're shooting is always make sure that you're leaving some space down at the bottom there to put some text in. Now remember, I told you that I had gone ahead and put a transition at the beginning of this. If we come back to the beginning now, we're going to run into a problem where we're just going to see at the very beginning Cecil Bentley, Grady College sitting there, but we don't see him until we start coming into this.
Cecil Bentley.
So what we can do is we can actually go in and we can put transitions on that. So we're going to come back up to video transitions. to dissolve, and I'm going to use the fade in, fade out dissolve. And all I'm going to do is change this to 15 frames, because that's how long my other one was. And I'm going to click this left triangle here, because this is going to put this at the beginning of an edit. Drag it down, drop it on there. Then I'm going to click this for put it at the end of an edit. Drag this, put it over here. And now, when we play this from the very beginning, we'll start at black, and both Mr. Bentley and his title should fade up together. Let's take a look.
I'm Cecil Bentley, have a couple of different titles. One is oversee external relations.
All right, that looks pretty good. Let's click down here to just about the end and make sure that it's working at the very end.
Corporate relations, but also an assistant director.
Really good. It's fading out just as the college is starting to fade in there. So that's how you do a lower third. You always want to make sure that you're identifying things, and again, double check your spelling on folks, because spelling does count. Now the other thing we want to do is we want to put some credits on here. So I'm going to come to the very end of our video here, all the way down here. So that's the end of it. And here I'm going to click up here and take out my in and out points and put in an in point here at the end. I'm going to go back up to video generators, text. This time I'm going to come down to one that's just marked text. Again, it's just showing us what's there. I'm going to hit controls, and what I want to put in here is my copyright information. Now, copyright is really important, plus you want to put some contact information here. This is just like the metadata that we put into our photos several weeks ago. All right, so the first thing I want to do is put a copyright symbol in there, and on a Mac it's Option G, space, the year I created this, and then my name. Then I'm going to hit return, and below that I'm going to put in some form of contact information. So I'm going to put my website on there. Now again, we can come in here, we can change the typeface, we can change the size, the style, all of that information. Unfortunately, what this does is this does it globally. It's going to change everything on there. So let's just check and make sure this looks okay. That looks fantastic. All right, so I'm going to come down here, and I've got an in point on my canvas. And what I want to do is I want to change the duration that this is going to run for. And if I come here to the upper left-hand corner, you can see that this right now is set for 10 seconds. It's kind of long. So what I'm going to do is change that to 5 seconds. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap in 500, because it's going to use the 5 for the seconds place and the 2 zeros for the frame. So now I've got a 5-second piece there. And instead of doing this as a superimpose, I'm going to do this as an overwrite so that it drops onto video channel 2, which I still had that mapped for. All right, so now if we go to the end here, we can see as this plays through.
Critique those sessions later that day.
And that pops up, so if we want, we can once again put a video transition in there. So fade out, fade in, change it to 15 frames, put it at the beginning, drag this over here, put it on top, play it again just to make sure we've got what we want.
Those sessions later that day.
And I'm not going to put a transition on the end, because most video players are just going to leave that last frame up. And what I want to do is give folks as much time as possible to be able to see what it is that I've been working on. All right, so now my editing is done. There's nothing else that I'm going to do with this. So I'm going to come back over to my Final Cut tab here where it says Demo. And just to be safe, I'm going to hit Apple S to save this one last time. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to right-click on my sequence file here, and I'm going to come down to Export. But instead of going to Export, I'm going to go one below it to Send To, and I'm going to send it to a program called Compressor. And as soon as you click on this, it's going to launch this other program, Compressor. Now, Compressor comes with the Final Cut suite, and what it specializes in doing is taking your files and outputting them. And what it allows you to do is say, I need this file in multiple formats. So it's going to allow you to have multiple output formats on these things. And you can do a whole bunch of different, very powerful things that are in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at Compressor here. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see this is where my files are. It's telling me to drag settings and destinations here. I've got settings options here. This is an inspector so that we can see what these settings are. And then there's a viewer over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the Apple area here. And we're going to come down to Formats. And scroll down some more to QuickTime. And we're going to be looking for an H.264 file. Now, this is going to give us something that's essentially the same as what we had. Now, what I want to do is come up here to this plus, and this is going to make a copy of it and drop it down into my custom settings. The ones that are up here under Apple, I can't alter, but once I've got a custom one, I can go ahead and alter that. So I've got that selected, and what I want to do is I want to come over here to the Geometry tab, which is the second one in from the right, and I want to change the frame size to 50% of source. Now remember, we were shooting these at 720p, and what this is going to do is this is going to shrink it down so that we're going to have a smaller file that's appropriate for posting on the web. Once I've got that done, I'm going to take this QuickTime H.264 copy, I'm going to drag it up here onto my file. It's going to list it as one of the things that we're going to do with this, and then I'm going to click Submit. And once I click Submit, it's going to start that conversion program. Now, one of the things that I didn't check was where is it going to send this file to? And so I can click on that gear for tools, and I want to look at default destination, and where I actually want to send that to is the source folder. So what I can do now is I can come up here and I can click minus because I want to take that off. Click OK. Come back down here, change my default destination to the source. So again, it drops it into that folder. Click Save, drag this up on here, and click Submit. And then Submit again. And that's going to start that process. And you can see over here in the right-hand corner that it's beginning. You can click on this little triangle, and you can sit there and watch it go. Now, a couple of things. It's going to give you a remaining time counter on there. Don't believe it. It's never accurate. I've been using Compressor for years. I've never seen it be accurate. The larger your file is, the longer it's going to take. Now, the file that we're sending here is not all that long, so it's going to go fairly quickly. But depending on the size of your file, it might take quite a bit of time. All right, and that wraps up this week. So let's go over the vocab real quick. Only a couple of things that we talked about here. We talked about lower third graphics. Lower third graphics are those graphics that you drop down below to the bottom part of your screen there, where you can put a name or a title in there. And again, you're going to use the superimpose command. That's the second vocab work, as opposed to the overwrite for the type of edit there. And what that'll do is automatically generate another video channel sitting above and allow you to put that in there. And then the last one is Compressor. Compressor is a program that's packaged with Final Cut Pro, and it allows you to output in multiple formats very quickly, very simply. It's a very powerful program. If you end up someplace where you're not working on Final Cut Pro and you're working on a system such as Avid, you may have a program called Sorensen Squeeze, and Squeeze is essentially a different type of program that works in the same way as Compressor. It's designed to output files, change resolution, and things like that. So your assignment for this week in class is going to be to create and insert a set of graphics. You need to put both title graphic on there, that lower third graphic, as well as the text graphic at the end with your copyright information, the year this was produced, your name, and some form of copyright. What I would recommend doing is dropping in the URL for your blog, since you've been working on that throughout the course of the semester. Once you've got all of that done, go ahead and export using Compressor. And you want to go down to the H.264, make a copy of it, change the settings so that it's going to create something that's 50% of your original source size, change the destination so that it goes back into your source folder. Once you've got that done, go ahead and take that compressed version of your file, drop it on the server, let your professor know that it's there, and you're done with your digital literacy videos for this semester. Hope this semester has gone well for you. If you have any questions, as always, go ahead and ask your professor. They are the experts on this. This series was produced for the Journalism Department of the Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Georgia by a grant from the James M. Cox Institute for Newspaper Management Studies.